There, Trudy, thank you. Let's stay in Canberra now because joining us live is Liberal MP Tim Wilson. Tim, good to see you. Are you going today?
Peter, well, I'll actually be making a statement about this at the Parliament at 11 o'clock. I'm giving a speech, and I had pre-booked to give a speech on women's empowerment and gender inequity, it's fortuitous that it's hitting on this day because I think all of us hear the voices of Australian women and deep concern about sexual harassment in the workplace. I just go to the Australian Human Rights Commission report that was released by Commissioner Kate Jenkins recently, which said this is an issue that covers women Australians in all workplaces across the country. And so it's not just about an issue that may occur in Parliament, it's across all workplaces in the country.
So you said you're giving a speech today, but are you going to the march or you can't make it?
Well, we're looking through the diary because I have people who have flown in the country to see me around that time. But as I said, I'm giving a speech on gender equity and empowerment already, and I'll address that there. But the most important thing for us as parliamentarians is to hear those voices, and we're hearing them every day. We're in our communications to our electorate. We're hearing them every day in the issues that are coming up, obviously, through the media. And of course, any sexual harassment or workplace discrimination or physical or sexual violence against women or any Australian is utterly unacceptable, and we've got to send a very clear message about that.
But the organisers say that you're not hearing their voices, and that may well be evidenced by the fact that there's only 2 members of the Liberal Party who are attending the march so far.
Well, politely, I would perhaps disagree with that. I think there is a very clear understanding, and always has been. I mean, the reason we have the inquiry that they're demanding we implement is because the government prompted its investigation, because we know that sexual harassment is an issue across the country, and that there are outdated ideas about what is acceptable in some workplaces, and it doesn't matter what the workplace is, whether it's the nation's parliament, whether it's the local milk bar, no matter where it is in the country, people should go to work, feel safe, and that's a standard which you expect for every single Australian.
But why not go outside? I mean, it's not very far and it would only take a couple of minutes, listen to what they've got to say and then go back inside Parliament again.
Well, again, everybody has their own situation, and so no one, I think, is doing it out of any other reason than because they clearly have responsibilities and tasks. I have responsibility and tasks from my diary for the whole day, as other members of Parliament do. But one of the things I did have already scheduled 11 was a speech on gender equity and empowerment, and that's why I'm going to make some very clear statements there, because I think everybody wants to know that parliamentarians hear the voices of Australian women, but all Australians who've been victims of sexual violence and sexual assault and sexual harassment, and to know very clearly that that's standard and that is not tolerated in modern Australia.
What do you make of this standoff that appears to be taking shape at the moment between the Prime Minister as well as the organisers of the march? They want the Prime Minister to go outside. The Prime Minister wants them to go to him. What do you make of again, this standoff that appears to be taking place?
Well, it seems pretty clear to me that a very clear offer was made by the Prime Minister to directly and explicitly hear the concerns of the march organisers and the demands that they're making. I think it's really disappointing that they've turned down that opportunity. I know they've made their argument why, but I can tell you I have lots of constituents every day who'd love an interview, a meeting directly with the Prime Minister to raise their issues and their concerns. And as I understand it, that offer is still on the table, and I would encourage them to take it up, because it's not about doing things behind closed doors or anything like that. It's actually sitting down, having a conversation, rather than just people chanting and the conversation going in one direction.
But that seems to be a powerful message that they are trying to put out there today, that sexual assault happens behind closed doors, and they don't want that meeting to take place behind closed doors. They want it out in the open. Doesn't that seem reasonable?
Well, lots of allegations of things like sexual harassment both occur behind closed doors, but are reported behind closed doors because people want to protect their privacy and they want to make sure action is taken. And when we're talking about policy responses, consultations as part of the Sex Discrimination Commissioner's work, Kate Jenkins, a fine Goldstein constituent, I need to stress, and somebody who I'm regularly in contact, including on these issues often happens privately, not because there's any attempt other than to have a proper, substantive conversation so that issues are addressed, not simply that people are shouted at from a protest march where we'll hear the sound, but it won't lead to a constructive dialogue because our focus is on how to fix these issues.
So is that the concern, that the Prime Minister would go out there, then he would be ambushed and it would create a spectacle?
Well, I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is that if you actually want to have a conversation, a dialogue about how we can all move forward together, it normally starts by sitting down and having a conversation rather than, protests have their place, and I'm not dissuading the protesters at all. They should make their voices very clearly heard, but it's not the basis in which you can have a dialogue about how we're going to move forward and address the issues precisely they're concerned about.
But they would argue that, that these dialogue up until this point hasn't worked.
Politely, I would disagree with that because they're asking us to implement the recommendations of an inquiry we requested because we understand that sexual harassment in many workplaces across Australia is a serious issue, and now we're going through the process of implementing that. Now, I understand there are those changes they want and there are additional ones as well, and they should continue to provide that information to the government, but I think turning down the opportunity to have a direct dialogue with the Prime Minister is frankly ill-advised.
At the very least, shouldn't the Minister for Women go out?
Well, again, that offer was made to have the conversation with the Prime Minister, to have that conversation together. And I think that is the tone we want to set around making sure that everybody feels safe in Parliament House. Everybody has the opportunity to have the conversations we need to move the country forward and to implement practical change so that no Australian faces issues of workplace discrimination, sexual harassment or sexual violence.
OK. Liberal MP Tim Wilson live from Canberra. Thanks, Tim. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Peter.